I sit across from him. The white tablecloth between us feels like miles of Arctic ice. Marcus is leaning forward, earnest, his eyes pleading. He slides a velvet box across the table, opens it. The diamond inside catches the light from the ridiculously expensive chandelier overhead, throwing rainbows onto his desperate face. It costs more than my first car did, probably more than the experimental surgery that let me walk back into his life. Behind him, the city sprawls out, a glittering carpet below the floor-to-ceiling windows of this five-star cage. The same city where, 5 years ago, he looked at me, really looked at the wheelchair I was confined to, and decided I was too much trouble. Not enough. "Eliza, please," Marcus says, his voice thick, maybe even genuinely broken. "I was young, so stupid, arrogant. I know that now. I've changed." A small smile plays on my lips. My fingers find the cool metal of the pendant around my neck. A tiny, stylized wheelchair. It's the one sentimental piece I kept. A reminder. He doesn't even recognize it. Of course he doesn't. He never saw me back then, only the chair. "No, Marcus," I say softly, my voice steady. Just then, my phone buzzes against the linen napkin in my lap. A text. From Alexander Chen, his business partner, his rival. "You haven't changed." I meet his gaze, but I have. Leaving Marcus sputtering in the restaurant feels like shedding a skin I didn't even realize I was still wearing. Outside, the valet brings my car around, a sleek, dark sedan that purrs with quiet power. I slide behind the wheel, the familiar motion smooth, almost automatic. Driving is one of the simple freedoms I relish most. Later, I stand in the marble lobby of the Phoenix Tower, the most exclusive address in the city. The night concierge nods respectfully. "Miss Winters, a package arrived for you this evening." "Thank you, James." I take the slim portfolio he offers. Inside, I already know, are the final acquisition reports for another block of shares in Marcus's firm. My firm soon enough. The private elevator whispers upwards. I swipe the key card, not the guest card Diane wheedled out of the building manager for her surprise visits, but my own owner's access card, and step into the penthouse. The view is panoramic, breathtaking. It's the kind of place Marcus always dreamed of living in, the kind of place he told me we couldn't afford if he was saddled with my medical bills. 5 years ago, I was Eliza Wheeler, the girl in the wheelchair, the unfortunate fiancé he couldn't wait to discard, the burden he couldn't possibly carry while climbing the corporate ladder. Now, I'm Elizabeth Winters, the silent, faceless investor gutting his company from the inside out. Poetic justice has a surprisingly sharp edge. My mind drifts back, unbidden, as it often does in the quiet moments. Back to the sterile quiet of the university library, the scent of old paper and dust motes dancing in the afternoon light. I was 19, pre-law, full of ambition. Marcus Thorne was the golden boy, already charming partners at the city's top firm where he interned. We were inseparable, planning a future filled with corner offices and summer houses. Then came the rain-slicked highway, the screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal. Flashback, dorm common room, 3 months post-accident. I'd wheeled myself down the hall, hoping to surprise Marcus with coffee. I stopped just outside the doorway, hearing voices. His and Vanessa's. My best friend. "Can't be serious, Marcus," Vanessa was saying, her voice a low, urgent hiss. "Think about it, really think. A lifetime of this? Caring for someone, limited. What about children? What if they inherit, you know, and your career? You're on the fast track at Sterling and Vance. Do you think they want a partner whose wife is an object of pity?" Silence. Then Marcus, his voice strained. "It's not like that, Ness. I love her." "Do you? Or do you feel obligated, responsible?" Another pause. "This isn't the life you planned, Marcus. It isn't the life she would want for you, if she were being honest. You need someone who can stand beside you, not someone you have to push." I backed away, my wheels silent on the worn carpet. The coffee went cold in my hands. My chest felt tight, like the twisted metal of the car wreck. He loved me. But Vanessa was right. This wasn't the life he'd planned, and maybe, just maybe, he was already looking for the emergency exit. The physical therapy was brutal. Hours upon hours of agonizing effort trying to coax unresponsive muscles back to life. Sweat, tears, frustration. The initial prognosis was grim. Permanent T10 paralysis. Walking again? A fantasy. Marcus was there at first. He held my hand during painful stretches, brought takeout to the rehab center, talked about modifying our future apartment. But I saw the shift. The visits became shorter, the excuses more frequent. A late night at the office, an early morning meeting. His eyes started to slide away from mine, focusing somewhere over my shoulder. He stopped talking about our future apartment and started talking about his career trajectory. The golden boy was dimming, weighed down by the tarnish of my tragedy. The end, when it came, wasn't a dramatic confrontation. It was a quiet, vanishing act. I woke up one chilly autumn morning. The space beside me in the bed was cold. A note lay on his pillow, his elegant script stark against the white paper. "Eliza, I can't do this anymore. I'm not strong enough. You deserve someone better, someone who can handle this life, who won't resent the sacrifices." "I'm sorry." Marcus, no discussion, no final goodbye. Just gone. Like I was a piece of inconvenient luggage left behind at the station. The same day the phone rang. My parents. Their voices were strained, falsely cheerful. The family business, the one they'd poured everything into, was failing. They'd made some tough decisions. They'd accessed my medical trust fund, the settlement money from the accident meant for my lifelong care, to try and salvage the company. It was gone. All of it. "We knew you'd understand, honey," my mother had chirped. "Family helps family." I sat there in the silence of my suddenly too large apartment, the note in one hand, the phone receiver dead in the other. Abandoned and bankrupt in the space of a few hours. The world felt like it was tilting, spinning off its axis. Then Diane arrived. My older sister, always perfectly put together, always slightly resentful of the attention my accident had garnered. She swept in, supposedly to offer comfort, her eyes scanning the apartment, lingering on the few valuable things I owned, mostly gifts from Marcus in happier times. "Oh, Eliza, you poor thing," she'd said, patting my shoulder awkwardly. "Men are such cowards." Then, her gaze fixed on the antique jewelry box on my dresser, a Thorne family heirloom Marcus had given me. "You know, darling, you probably won't have much use for these fancy things now. Parties, galas. It's just not practical, is it? And they really belong in a home where they'll be properly appreciated. Part of a legacy." She didn't wait for an answer, just scooped up the box, along with a few other small valuables. "I'll keep them safe for you," she'd added, already heading for the door. She didn't even offer to help me make tea. That night was the lowest point. Rain lashed against the windows of my cramped ground-floor apartment, the sound mimicking the storm inside me. I was alone, truly alone, in my wheelchair, staring at the ceiling. Betrayed by my lover, my best friend, my parents, my sister. The world had shrunk to the four walls of this room, and the future stretched out like a bleak, empty highway. Despair was a cold, heavy blanket. Just as I felt myself sinking completely, my laptop pinged. An email. Subject, your case file. Dr. Alistair Finch. I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam or another rejection from a specialist. But something made me click. "Dear Miss Wheeler, we have reviewed the medical records forwarded by your primary care physician. Our team at the Alpine Institute for Regenerative Medicine in Switzerland believes you may be a candidate for an experimental neurospinal scaffolding procedure we are pioneering. While outcomes are not guaranteed, preliminary results show significant potential for nerve regeneration and partial to full functional recovery in cases similar to yours. Funding options are available for qualified international patients. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience if you wish to discuss this further. Sincerely, Dr. Alistair Finch. Switzerland. Experimental procedure. Potential for recovery. Funding options." A tiny spark ignited in the darkness. It wasn't hope, not yet. But it was something, a possibility, a way out, a reason to fight back. I looked at the rain-streaked window, at my reflection faintly visible in the dark glass, pale, tear-streaked, trapped. No, I thought. Not trapped. Not anymore. This wasn't the end. It was the goddamn beginning. 2 years of grueling surgery, experimental treatments, and relentless physiotherapy in the sterile, quiet efficiency of the Swiss Alps. 2 years of rebuilding not just my body, but my entire identity. The procedure worked better than anyone dared hope. The nerve scaffolding integrated, signals started firing, muscles remembered. I went from barely perceptible toe wiggles to standing, to taking hesitant steps with parallel bars, to walking with crutches, then a cane, and finally just the ghost of a limp. A subtle asymmetry in my gait that only I could truly feel. During the long months of recovery, isolated and focused, I did more than heal physically. I had time. Time to think. Time to learn. My pre-law brain devoured information on medical patents, biomechanics, and investment strategies. The core technology used in my own surgery, I saw its potential beyond spinal injuries. With Dr. Finch's blessing and guidance, I refined the application, developed a new delivery system for the regenerative matrix, and filed provisional patents. A venture capital firm specializing in biotech saw the potential. Suddenly, Eliza Wheeler, the abandoned girl in the wheelchair, had resources. Significant resources. I returned to the city under a new name, Elizabeth Winters. Eliza Wheeler was dead, buried under an avalanche of betrayal. Elizabeth was sleek, sophisticated, untouchable. I rented the penthouse at the Phoenix Tower under a corporate lease tied to my newly formed holding company, Ariadne Solutions. My first official act as Elizabeth was scheduling a meeting with Horizon Capital, one of the city's most aggressive investment firms. Flashback, Horizon Capital boardroom 3 years ago. I walked into the boardroom wearing tailored Armani, dark sunglasses shielding my eyes. My cultivated, vaguely European accent masking my origins. My limp was barely noticeable if I concentrated. I presented my proposal, a significant injection of capital from an anonymous overseas investor, represented by Ariadne Solutions, looking to diversify into the local legal services market. My target? Acquiring controlling stakes in struggling mid-tier firms, starting with those showing vulnerability, specifically, firms losing key personnel and clients. Miss Winters, the CEO, a shark named Julian Croft, had said, steepling his fingers, "Your principal is discreet." "My principal values privacy above all else, Mr. Croft," I replied coolly, "but their pockets are deep and their patience is long. They believe in strategic disruption." They took the bait. Horizon Capital became the respectable face of my anonymous investments. It wasn't long before the society pages delivered the expected, yet still painful, news. A glossy photo spread. Marcus Thorne, beaming, arm possessively around Vanessa Dubois, my former best friend, announcing their engagement. The caption gushed about the city's power couple. Their joint Instagram account was a curated nightmare of perfect moments, laughing over champagne, skiing in Aspen, attending charity galas I was never invited to even before the accident. The life I was explicitly told I couldn't have, flaunted for the world to see. The life Vanessa had convinced Marcus he deserved without me dragging him down. Seeing them together solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about Marcus anymore. It was about Vanessa's calculating betrayal, my family's mercenary abandonment. It was about reclaiming the narrative they had stolen from me. My first move was surgical. Using Ariadne Solutions, funded by my patent windfall, I didn't attack Marcus's firm, Sterling and Vance, directly. Instead, I identified their closest competitor, a smaller, hungrier firm called Chen and Associates, run by a brilliant young attorney named Alexander Chen. Through Horizon Capital, I funneled anonymous investments into Chen and Associates, allowing them to offer significantly better partnership terms and resources. One by one, Marcus's key rainmakers and senior associates were poached, lured away by deals Sterling and Vance couldn't match. Clients followed the talent. Marcus's firm began to bleed. Next came Diane. I knew my sister. Her defining characteristic was avarice wrapped in a veneer of propriety. I arranged an accidental encounter at a high-profile hospital fundraiser, a cause I now genuinely supported through my nascent foundation. But the venue was chosen deliberately. I made sure to walk past her table. Her jaw literally dropped. Eliza, oh my God, is that, is that really you? She scrambled up, knocking over a water glass. You're walking. How? When? I gave her the edited version. A miraculous recovery, experimental treatment, lucky break. Her initial shock quickly morphed into rapid calculation. I could see the gears turning behind her eyes. A sister, miraculously healed, potentially wealthy? How could this benefit her? We have so much to catch up on, she gushed, clinging to my arm. You look incredible, like a different person. Exactly, I thought. Over overpriced cocktails later that week, I played my next card. I let slip casually that I'd been doing some consulting work for a groundbreaking Swiss biotech company. They're doing amazing things with mobility aids, neurointerfaces. Truly revolutionary, I murmured, swirling my drink. The market potential is astronomical. Diane leaned in, her eyes gleaming. Really? That sounds fascinating. You must tell me more. Are they looking for investors? Perhaps, I said noncommittally. It's all very hush-hush right now. Predictably, Diane saw an opportunity not just for herself, but to potentially mend fences and regain favor, perhaps even financial support. A few weeks later, she called, bubbling with faux excitement. Liza, guess what? I ran into Marcus and Vanessa. They were asking about you, wondering how you were doing after, well, you know. I told them you were back and doing amazingly well. They were so thrilled. Marcus felt just awful about how things ended, truly. We thought maybe we could all get together. Dinner, your place, like old times. My place, of course. They wanted to see the setup, gauge the depth of my recovery, sniff out the source of my apparent success. That sounds lovely, Diane, I said, keeping my voice smooth. Why don't you bring them by next Tuesday? The evening was a masterclass in strained politeness. Vanessa was overly effusive, her compliments feeling like tiny darts. Marcus was watchful, trying to reconcile the woman before him with the broken girl he'd abandoned. Diane chattered nervously, trying to bridge the chasm of awkwardness. They asked vague questions about Switzerland, about my work. Their interest wasn't in my well-being, it was in my connections, my perceived wealth, the utility I might now represent. I let the conversation drift, guiding it subtly. Talked about Horizon Capital's recent aggressive moves in the legal sector, the buzz about Chen and associates stealing market share. Then, the carefully placed comment. It's fascinating watching Sterling and Vance struggle, I mused, sipping my wine. Especially after losing the Henderson account. Poor Marcus, that must have stung. Particularly the clause about the intellectual property handover. Very specific wording. Almost sounds like something Julian Croft at Horizon would cook up after getting insider details on the initial weak drafting. I let the sentence hang, glancing innocently at Marcus. Only the anonymous investor funneling money through Horizon Capital to Chen and Associates, the investor who had specifically targeted the Henderson account, using knowledge of Marcus's sloppy early contract work, would know that level of detail about the clause wording and Croft's involvement. Marcus froze. The champagne flute halfway to his lips trembled. The color drained from his face, leaving it a pasty gray. He looked at me. Really looked at me. Maybe for the first time all evening. The calculation in his eyes shifted from curiosity to dawning horror. He knew. He didn't know how, but he knew the ghost haunting his firm wasn't a random market fluctuation. It was me. Elizabeth Winters. Eliza Wheeler. He choked, a small sputtering sound, champagne spilling down his expensive tie. Vanessa and Diane looked at him confused, but I saw the recognition, the terror in his eyes. Round 1. 6 months churn by, 6 months of tightening the screws. I'm no longer just a consultant pulling strings from the shadows. Julian Croft, impressed by the returns Ariadne Solutions delivered, officially hired me as Horizon Capital's Director of Acquisitions. My mandate? Identify and acquire distressed assets. And Marcus's firm, Sterling and Vance, is looking increasingly distressed. Their portfolio lands on my desk with a satisfying thud. It's during a tense negotiation over a shared client dispute that I formally meet Alexander Chen. We're on opposite sides of the table, technically rivals representing our respective firms' interests, but the energy between us is undeniable. He's sharp, incisive, with eyes that seem to see more than you intend. He dismantled Marcus's associate's argument with surgical precision and quiet confidence. There's a spark, an unwelcome flicker of interest that I try to extinguish. I can't afford distractions, not now. But when he smiles, a genuine, unexpected flash of warmth, my carefully constructed defenses momentarily falter. Then comes the phone call I knew was inevitable. My parents. Years of silence, broken the moment Diane undoubtedly reported back about my miraculous recovery and apparent prosperity. "Eliza, sweetheart, it's Mom." Her voice is syrupy sweet, laced with faux maternal concern. "We heard, Diane told us, you're back, and doing so well. We're so proud." Proud. They who drained my future to save their failing business, who offered platitudes instead of support? "We always believed in you, darling." My father chimes in on the extension. "Never doubted you for a second." The lies are so transparent, they're almost laughable. They want back in. They smell money, success, proximity to power. I keep the call brief, polite, but distant, offering vague promises to get together soon that I have no intention of keeping. Their attempt to rewrite history only fuels my resolve. They are part of the wreckage I'm clearing away. My position at Horizon gives me access, deep access. I pore over Sterling and Vance's financials, their client contracts, their internal memos. I find the weaknesses, the structural flaws, the ethical gray areas Marcus papered over in his climb to the top. And I feed strategic, anonymized information to Alexander Chen. Not enough to be illegal, but enough to give him an edge. The biggest blow comes via a major class action lawsuit against Marcus's largest, longest-standing client, a pharmaceutical giant. Alexander Chen represents the plaintiffs, using subtle insights gleaned from my review of Sterling and Vance's historical case files for that client, pointing out precedents Marcus overlooked, potential procedural missteps. I help Alexander craft an unshakable argument. The judgment is devastating. The pharmaceutical company is found liable for billions. They immediately fire Sterling and Vance and declare bankruptcy themselves, taking Marcus's firm's single biggest revenue stream with them. The financial hit is catastrophic. Sterling and Vance is officially circling the drain. The annual Legal Eagles Gala arrives. It's the industry's glitziest night, a parade of expensive suits and forced smiles. This year, Alexander Chen is receiving the Litigator of the Year award, largely thanks to the class action victory. Marcus and Vanessa are conspicuously absent. Their table sits empty. Alexander finds me near the champagne fountain. He looks devastating in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. "Miss Winters," he says, his eyes holding mine. "Congratulations are in order, I believe. Your firm's recent acquisitions have been impressive." "As has your litigation record, Mr. Chen," I reply, keeping my tone light. "Alex, please." He offers his hand. "May I have this dance?" I hesitate. Dancing is still something I approach with caution, my limp more pronounced when I'm tired or not concentrating. "I'm not much of a dancer," I demur. "Nonsense." He gently takes my hand, leading me towards the floor. As we move to the slow rhythm, his touch surprisingly sure, he leans closer, his voice a low murmur against my ear. "I know who you are, Eliza Wheeler." My blood runs cold. Panic flares, hot and sharp. My breath catches, exposed. He knows. How? He must feel me tense. He pulls back slightly, his expression serious but not unkind. "Don't worry," he says softly, his gaze steady. "Your secret is safe with me. Actually, I admire what you're doing, immensely." Relief washes over me, quickly followed by confusion. "How? Why?" "My younger sister, Chloe," he explains, his voice softening. "She uses a wheelchair, spinal muscular atrophy. I've seen firsthand the ignorance, the barriers, the quiet discrimination she faces every day. And I've been watching Marcus Thorne for years. His firm has a history of questionable tactics in disability rights cases. Settling low, advising clients to ignore accessibility compliance. When I saw what was happening to his firm, saw you appear at Horizon, I put the pieces together. What he did to you wasn't just personal, Eliza. It was part of a pattern, and frankly, he deserves this. He doesn't plan to expose me, he wants to help. This unexpected alliance, this shared understanding rooted in something deeper than revenge, throws me off balance. The next day, Vanessa shows up at my office at Horizon Capital, unannounced. She looks terrible. Her usually perfect makeup is smudged, her eyes red-rimmed. She bypasses my assistant, bursting through the door. "Eliza, please!" Her voice trembles. "You have to stop!" I remain seated behind my large mahogany desk, the picture of calm control. "Stop what, Vanessa?" "This! Whatever you're doing!" She gestures wildly. "The firm is collapsing. Marcus, he's falling apart. He doesn't sleep. He drinks constantly. He's losing everything." I feel a flicker of something, not pity, perhaps grim satisfaction. And this concerns me how? "Because you did this. You orchestrated it. We know it was you," she cries, tears finally spilling over, streaking her mascara. "You got your revenge. You won. Isn't that enough? Please, Eliza, for the sake of what we used to be." What we used to be. The memory of her voice in the dorm common room, poisoning Marcus against me, flashes in my mind. Coldness settles over me. I reach into my desk drawer, pull out my personal tablet, and unlock it. I open a saved file screenshots of text messages. Messages Marcus sent me while I was in Switzerland, undergoing painful surgeries. Messages where he talked about Vanessa, about how she understood his ambition, how easy it was with her compared to the burden I represented. Messages where he debated whether to tell me about them before or after my potential recovery phase. Wordlessly, I turn the tablet around and slide it across the desk towards her. Vanessa stares at the screen, her face paling as she reads. She scrolls, her hand shaking. The dawning realization is ugly, twisting her features. He hadn't just left me. He'd been planning his future with her while I was literally fighting for my ability to walk again. And clearly, his pattern of discarding inconvenient women hadn't stopped with me. He told me he broke it off with you cleanly, months before we... Her voice trails off. She looks up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of horror and betrayal. He's been lying. All this time. "Yes," I say quietly, retrieving my tablet. "He has. Now, if you'll excuse me, Vanessa, I have a company to dismantle." She stumbles back, speechless, then turns and flees my office, leaving the scent of expensive perfume and broken illusions behind her. The day arrives. Not with a bang, but with the quiet click of cameras and the low murmur of the assembled press. I stand at the podium in the grand ballroom of the St. Regis Hotel, Alexander Chen solid and reassuring by my side. The backdrop behind us displays a new logo, the Next Step Foundation. "Good morning," I begin, my voice clear and steady, amplified by the microphones. For the past few years, I have operated primarily behind the scenes, through investment vehicles and holding companies. Today, I want to step forward. My name is Elizabeth Winters, though some of you may have once known me as Eliza Wheeler. A ripple goes through the room. Reporters scribble furiously. Cameras flash. Following a life-altering accident several years ago, I continue, I was fortunate enough to benefit from groundbreaking medical technology. That experience opened my eyes not only to the potential of science, but also to the immense challenges and systemic inequities faced by individuals living with disabilities. It led me to establish the Next Step Foundation. I outline the foundation's mission: funding research into accessible technology, advocating for disability rights, investing in companies that prioritize inclusivity, and providing resources for rehabilitation and independent living. I announce major partnerships, detail multi-million-dollar grants. I am not just a vengeful ghost. I am a force for change. Across town in his nearly empty, echoing office suite at Sterling and Vance, Marcus watches the live broadcast on his desktop monitor. The furniture is sparse. Most of it has already been sold off to cover operating expenses. He sees me, poised and powerful. He hears the name Next Step Foundation. He knows that name. It's the primary holder of several large blocks of his firm's defaulted loans, purchased at pennies on the dollar by Horizon Capital, my division. The realization hits him like a physical blow. The anonymous investor, the architect of his ruin, the woman now celebrated as a philanthropic visionary, is the same woman he discarded. Elizabeth Winters, Eliza Wheeler. He now understands. I don't just own his debt through shell companies managed by Horizon. Via Next Step's strategic investments, I control nearly 60% of what remains of his crippled firm. Checkmate. Later that week, Alexander and I sit in my penthouse, blueprints spread across the glass coffee table. Merging our foundations makes sense, he says, tapping a section detailing legal aid services. Your focus on tech and rehab, mine on legal advocacy and discrimination cases. We cover the spectrum. A powerhouse for disability rights. I agree, smiling. The partnership feels right, seamless, like us. What started as a strategic alliance, a shared goal of holding Marcus accountable, has deepened into something more profound. Respect, trust, love. He looks up, catches my eye, and the blueprints are forgotten for a moment. Eliza, he says softly, taking my hand. This partnership, I'd like it to be more than just professional. My heart stutters. This brilliant, compassionate man who saw past my scars and my secrets wants to build a life with me. The doorbell chimes, startling us. It's Diane. She looks flustered, clutching a worn manila folder. Tears well in her eyes, real ones this time, it seems. Eliza, Alex, she greets them breathlessly. I was cleaning out Mom and Dad's attic. Found some old papers. She opens the folder on the table, pushing aside the foundation blueprints. Inside are old photos, letters, and a brittle, official-looking document. It's their original will from years ago, before everything. She points to a specific clause, her finger trembling. Look, they did use your medical trust for the business, but they stipulated here that if the company ever recovered, if it became profitable again, you were to receive controlling interest, 51%. They promised you, Eliza. Her voice cracks. They lied. They told me they'd just borrowed it, that they'd pay it back when things got better. They never mentioned this. She looks up at me pleadingly. Maybe you can get it back now? I look at the document, then at Diane's hopeful, tear-streaked face. A slow, cold smile touches my lips. The final twist. Oh, Diane, I say softly. I know. Her eyes widen. You know? I've known for years, I state calmly. I triggered a search of probate and corporate records when I first started planning my return. Found the will, tracked the shell corporations they used to hide assets. Their company, Wheeler Textiles? It recovered about 4 years ago thanks to a silent partner who injected capital and modernized their operations. I lean forward slightly. That silent partner was one of my holding companies, Diane. I've owned 51% of Wheeler Textiles for the past 3 years. Mom and Dad are still on the payroll, drawing comfortable salaries, thinking they're still in charge. But they're figureheads, powerless. Did you honestly think? My voice drops, laced with ice. After everything they did, after you helped them strip me bare, that I wouldn't protect myself? That I wouldn't take back what was mine, and then some? Diane stares at me, speechless, the color draining from her face. The folder slips from her grasp, scattering old photos across the floor. Just then, Alexander's phone buzzes. He glances at the screen. Speak of the devil, he murmurs, then looks at me. My investigator just sent the final report on Marcus. It's solid. We can proceed. Proceed with what? Diane whispers, looking between us. Alexander meets my gaze, a silent question. I nod. He turns back to Diane. I haven't just been watching Marcus professionally, he explains calmly. What he did to Eliza was despicable, but it wasn't isolated. For years, I've been quietly documenting a pattern of ethical violations at Sterling and Vance, specifically concerning cases involving disabled clients, pressuring them into low settlements, advising corporate clients on how to circumvent ADA compliance, mishandling accessibility trust funds. It wasn't just about Eliza. He built his career by exploiting vulnerability. He pauses. We have enough to disbar him, permanently. Later that night, the city lights glittering below, the revelations hang heavy in the air. Diane is long gone, shaken and silent. Alexander pulls me close. For the first time, I don't pull away from the intimacy, the vulnerability. I let him see everything. I turn, guiding his hand to the faint, silvery network of scars on my back, hidden beneath my silk blouse. the map of my recovery etched onto my skin. This is where they went in, I whisper, tracing the longest line along my spine. Where the magic happened? His touch is incredibly gentle, reverent. He presses a soft kiss to the scar tissue. These aren't flaws, Eliza, he murmurs against my skin. They're proof of your strength. They aren't what make you extraordinary. You are extraordinary. In that moment, barriers I didn't even know were still standing crumble to dust. The next morning, my phone rings. Marcus. His voice is tight, desperate. Eliza, Elizabeth, we need to talk. Seriously talk, just you and me. There's nothing left to talk about, Marcus, I say coolly. The final board meeting for Sterling and Vance is scheduled for tomorrow. He knows I hold the debt. He knows Alexander Chen is circling. He must suspect worse. No, listen, he insists, his voice cracking. Forget the business stuff for a minute, and this is about us. There's still something between us, Eliza. There always was, always will be. We made mistakes. I made mistakes, but what we had... I almost laugh. What we had, Marcus. You threw that away when you left a note on a pillow. Let me see you, he pleads. Dinner, tomorrow night. La Vie Ciel rooftop, please, just hear me out. La Vie Ciel, the place we had our first anniversary dinner, the place where he first told me he loved me. The manipulation is pathetic, almost insulting, but a small, cold part of me decides, fine, let him have his stage. Let him play his final scene. Fine, Marcus, I say. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Let him beg. The rooftop air is cool, the view spectacular. La Vie Ciel is exactly as I remember, oppressively romantic, designed for grand gestures. Marcus is already there, at the most secluded corner table, the skyline glittering behind him like a cruel parody of our past dreams. He stands as I approach, his eyes scanning me, searching for... what? Lingering affection? Weakness. He looks older, lines etched around his eyes and mouth that weren't there before. The golden boy is tarnished, anxiety radiating off him in waves. He gestures for me to sit, fussing with my chair. The waiter pours champagne without asking. Marcus raises his glass. To second chances, he says, his voice attempting confidence but falling short. I don't touch my glass. Let's skip the preamble, Marcus. Why am I here? He takes a deep breath, reaches into his jacket pocket, and produces the velvet box I saw just nights before. He pushes it across the table again. Because I made the biggest mistake of my life, he says, his voice low and intense. Leaving you was unforgivable. I was ambitious, scared, stupid. Vanessa, my parents, they fed my fears, but the choice was mine. And it was wrong. Every day since, I've regretted it. He leans in, his eyes locking onto mine. These past few years, watching you from afar, Elizabeth Winters, you're magnificent, stronger, more brilliant than ever. Everything I ever wanted. I see that now. I was a fool. Please, Eliza, give us another chance. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life making it up to you. The sheer audacity of it leaves me momentarily speechless. Does he truly believe this? Does he think a diamond ring can erase the betrayal, the abandonment, the calculated cruelty? Does he think I orchestrated this elaborate multi-year reclamation of my life just to fall back into his arms? I finally find my voice calm and measured. Marcus, you seem to be operating under a misapprehension. You think I did all this to you? That my success, my recovery, my entire life for the past 5 years has been about revenge? About getting you back? I shake my head slowly. You flatter yourself. His brow furrows. But the firm, the clients, Chen. Your firm is failing because you were a mediocre lawyer who prioritized schmoozing over substance. I state plainly. Your clients left because Alexander Chen is better than you. Your life is falling apart because the choices you made, the character flaws you refused to address, the same ones that led you to leave me when I needed you most, have finally caught up with you. I didn't orchestrate your downfall, Marcus. I simply stepped out of the way and let gravity do its work. My only role was ensuring I was protected from the fallout and perhaps ensuring others weren't harmed by you in the future. His face falls, confusion warring with disbelief. But you came back here. You used a different name. You targeted my business. I came back because this is my city, I counter. I used a different name because Eliza Wheeler was too burdened by your narrative. And I invested strategically, yes. But my primary focus, I gesture broadly, encompassing the city lights, has been building something new. The Next Step Foundation. Helping people who were dealt a hand like mine, or worse. That's where my energy has gone, Marcus. Not into destroying you. You managed that all on your own. Just then, a figure appears at the edge of the terrace. Vanessa. She must have followed him. Her eyes land on the table, on the open ring box between us, then lift to meet Marcus's guilty, startled expression. The final piece clicks into place for her. He wasn't just trying to save his company. He was planning to discard her too, trying to trade up back to the woman he thought he'd ruined. Her face crumples, not with anger, but with a profound, devastating understanding. She turns without a word and walks away. Marcus starts to rise. Vanessa, wait. Let her go, Marcus, I say quietly. She deserves better. We both do. The next day, my parents appear at the Next Step Foundation headquarters, not with apologies, but with lawyers. They wave legal papers demanding the return of Wheeler Textiles, claiming I took advantage of their vulnerable emotional state and Diane's misguided assistance to seize control. I face them in the Foundation's conference room, Alexander standing calmly beside me, his hand resting reassuringly on my shoulder. He's not just my fiancé, he's my counsel. You taught me a very important lesson about family, I tell them, my voice steady, devoid of heat. You taught me that sometimes the family you choose, the people who stand by you, who lift you up, who believe in your worth unconditionally, matters far more than the family you're born into. I nod to Alexander. He steps forward, addressing their lawyers coolly, outlining the legal impossibility of their claim, referencing the original will and my documented, legitimate acquisition process. My parents bluster, then deflate, their greed finally meeting an immovable object. Later, Marcus calls one last time, desperate. His firm is officially insolvent. He makes a final plea, a merger. Merge what's left of Sterling and Vance with Chen and Associates, with Next Step providing bridge financing. We could rebuild it, Eliza, together. I decline politely but firmly. Instead, I authorize the foundation to acquire Sterling and Vance's remaining tangible assets. Office furniture, computers, their law library for pennies on the dollar. The assets will be donated to legal aid societies and disability advocacy nonprofits. Alexander handles the final paperwork. Diane calls too, tearful, finally acknowledging the depth of her betrayal, begging for forgiveness. I listen, my gaze distant. I don't hate you, Diane, I say honestly. Hate requires energy I no longer have to spare for you. I just don't need you anymore. I wish you well. I end the call, the final thread to my old life severed. 1 year melts into the next. The Aegean Sea sparkles under a brilliant Greek sun. Alexander and I stand barefoot on the warm sand of a secluded beach in Santorini. My wedding gown is custom-made, elegant silk that flows around me, the back deliberately cut low to showcase, not hide, the network of scars that map my journey. They are part of me, part of the story that brought me here to this man, to this moment. Our vows are simple, heartfelt, witnessed only by a few close friends, and Alexander's sister Chloe, beaming from her flower-adorned wheelchair at the edge of the waves. Life unfolds with a quiet, fulfilling rhythm. The Next Step Foundation opens its global headquarters back in the city. A state-of-the-art facility combining research labs, accessible tech incubators, legal aid offices, and closest to my heart, a residential wing offering support and cutting-edge rehabilitation for young people recovering from spinal injuries and other mobility-altering conditions. It's the haven I wish I'd had. I run into Marcus unexpectedly at an international biotech conference in Geneva. He's working for a mid-level European firm now, looking diminished, like a suit that's slightly too large for him. He attempts casual conversation, a hesitant inquiry about my work. I keep it brief, polite, professional, offering no opening for personal reminiscence. Our paths diverged long ago. There's no anger left, just a vast, indifferent distance. He's a footnote in a chapter I've long since finished writing. Back home, Alexander and I spend evenings painting the room next to ours in soft shades of yellow and green. We're preparing for the arrival of our daughter, Lily, whom we are adopting. She's 3 years old, bright-eyed and curious, born with spina bifida, a condition whose challenges mirror my own acquired injury in many ways. We chose her, and she chose us. The cycle of care, support, and understanding feels complete. My memoir, The Alternate Route, detailing my accident recovery and the founding of Next Step, unexpectedly hits the bestseller lists. The raw honesty seems to resonate. I direct all proceeds into a scholarship fund for law students with disabilities, hoping to empower the next generation of advocates like Alexander. The final scene isn't dramatic. It's sunset on the deck of our beachfront home, not far from the city, but worlds away from its frantic pace. Alexander's arms are wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my head. We're watching Lily splash happily in the shallow waves, aided by a specialized, brightly colored water wheelchair Next Step helped develop. The sound of her laughter mixes with the gentle rhythm of the tide. There's a profound sense of peace, a quiet joy that feels earned, settled deep in my bones. The ghosts of the past are finally silent. The driving need for vengeance has long since faded, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of creation. My greatest revenge wasn't tearing down the life that hurt me, but constructing a new one, stronger and more beautiful from the ruins. Building something better. My phone, resting on the table nearby, buzzes softly. A glance shows a blocked number. Probably another desperate message forwarded from an old, forgotten email account belonging to Eliza Wheeler. I silence it without reading. Some people drift through your life leaving blessings. Others carve out lessons. I look at Alexander, at our daughter playing freely by the sea, and feel a wave of gratitude wash over me. I've learned finally to be grateful for both. The life I have now isn't the one I planned at 19, but it's infinitely richer, deeper, and more meaningful. It's mine.